But he's just a crazy old man, right? Doesn't know what he's talking about. He's always an alarmist. He never gets it. Wait a minute, he got it right all the way back. All the way back to the 70s and 80s. Dr. Ron Paul has been telling us that the government was doing these things. We were warned by Dr. Ron Paul as early as 1983 about the coming police state and about the surveillance activities of Americans that we can see today in the NSA scandal. We now see the people that claim to love liberty in both parties calling for the extradition and prosecution of the NSA whistleblower, who to me is not a traitor but a hero. He didn't tell us what the government was doing specifically in any way that compromised our security the way that they're trying to make it. No. He just told us what they were doing to us. And all of a sudden, there's bipartisan support for this guy's head. And there's a difference between the D and the R, folks. You got to support one or the other because the world will end if the other party takes over. There's some differences in some events and some things. But recent things like this push for national identification, recent things like the unification behind going after a guy who told the truth to the American people about what's being done, should tell you in the end there's not much difference. It's a false dichotomy. Pepsi or Coke, gold or silver, A or B, MasterCard or Visa. The choices are yours. The choices are endless. But in the end, the choices are the same. If you choose Coke or Pepsi, you might get a little bit of a different taste in your mouth. But in the end, you're drinking shit full of high fructose corn syrup and atrazine. That's what you're really getting. And there could not be a better explanation for the people that are currently running our country than that. That is the perfect analogy. You know, you can drink the Coke or you can drink the Pepsi, but in the end, you're getting shit. You can vote for the D, you can vote for the R, but in the end, you're getting it in the butt. That's what these people are doing to us. And they're doing it right now. And we're not even paying attention. It's time to light them up, man. It really is. The good news. I don't think this will make it through the House. Not this way. I don't think we can stop it in the Senate today. I think the Senate's going to pass this crap. And I think they're going to... Here's the thing. I think that they're going to convince the general sheeple that this is good for them. This is what you've always asked for. You've asked us how we're going to ensure that we enforce immigration law after we do this deal. Well, this is the only way we can do it. You want us to make sure that employers don't hire illegals? We need a way that we can do that. We need to be able to have an employer verify their citizenship. It's called a birth certificate. I know it took the president an awful long time to find his, but most people can come up with one. It's called a birth certificate and an ID card and a social security card, right? We already have a database of everybody in America that would want to work in America. It's called social security numbers. That's too far as far, but it's already there. Don't give me this crap that they can't hold employers accountable for not hiring illegals without a national ID database that links biometrically to your ID card. Because, see, this is the next step. This is what Dr. Paul was talking about. They want these cards to be something that can't be counterfeited. So they want biometrics included in the card. They want an RFID tag. They want to force the state of Texas, the state of Florida, the state of Virginia to put a chip in your ID card, okay? And that means wherever you go, that little RFID chip can skip off a scanner and tell people where you went. And you think, I know, I'll get smart. I'll get one of those little bitty sleeves, those little metal sleeves, and I'll stick it in there so it shields. And tell you what, if they ever do this, that's one smart thing to do. But what's next? Next, they'll start saying, well, you know, we want to make sure that everybody going to the airport belongs there, so I'll scan it every time you go to the airport. So now we know every time you got on a plane where you were going. Every time you apply for a job, beep, it'll go through. They're going to require the employers to buy a scanner to scan your card with. That's the provision here. So that way they can tell the employer, you can't possibly say you didn't know, because when you scanned it, it's... So now they know that that they even talked to you. What's after that? Trains. When you get on a train, scan your card, prove you belong on a train, because we don't want you blowing it up. You know, you think this can't happen. You think this can't happen, but it can. It's happening right in front of us right now. It's happening right in front of us right now. And I'll have an easy solution for you. Because the only way to get this into fire ant mode is to wake up about 50 million Americans. That's what we have to do. 50, 55 million of us. Every gun owner in America that's represented on that Sentinel coin should be waked the hell up by now, but they're not. They're sleeping, they're slumbering while we spin toward tyranny. So in the interim, my friends, build liberty in your individual life. Create freedom and self-sufficiency in your individual life. Take the systems of support that you depend on for your 6 primary survival needs. Stop buying them a la carte and systemize them in a way where they're provided for you versus you having to acquire them on a weekly or daily or monthly basis. This is the only way forward right now until more people wake up. And you can shout it from the rooftops, but the reality is most of the damn grasshoppers are not ready to become ants yet. They're not. They haven't been stepped on enough. They haven't felt the boot on their throat enough. And the only thing we can hope for is that they feel it before they're trampled out and it's too late. And I can't promise you that's not going to happen. I can't promise you that this nation won't rise into the greatest police state that's ever existed. All I can tell you is as long as there's more of us than there are of them, and that's the only way a country works, there's always the opportunity to dismantle it. There's always the opportunity to tear it apart. There's always an opportunity to restore liberty. But the only people that can be warriors and fight for that liberty have to have security in their own lives. They have to have security for their families. They have to have security for their food, for their shelter, for their energy. They have to feel that I don't need you. You have to feel I don't need you. I don't want you. Otherwise, you'll make the deal. And that's how they plan on holding on to this power that they're incrementally acquiring. Get enough people scared shitless of freedom that they'll stay in the cage voluntarily. You know, there's an analogy here with my geese. I just put out a video where I moved them into this 16 by 16 moving fence system that I put together. They spent the first 4.5 weeks of their life in a little tractor, about 3 foot, 4 foot wide, somewhere about 3.5 feet wide by 7.5 feet long. They'd gotten to the point where I decided they needed to come out of there because they were too big for it. I was having to move them 4 or 5 times a day to keep them fed. When I took one out, he was upset at being picked up, which is typical, and I pet him and I talked to him, and he calmed down the way that they do, and then I put him down inside this much bigger cage. It wasn't even not a cage, it was just a bigger cage, and he freaked out. It was too much freedom too fast. I had to get his buddies with him, right? When they all got together in a group again, they felt okay with their new status of captivity. And if I go out there right now and take the fence down, the first time they're experiencing a environment where they have an acre or two of captivity versus 16 by 16 feet, 256 square feet, they'll probably freak out again and adapt to that. But they're geese. They have an excuse. And you know what? The thing about geese is they really quickly adapt to that new freedom. They don't fear it for very long. The human, on the other hand, that is fed by his government and milked like a cow and seems to almost enjoy giving blood to the IRS and milk to the federal government, really fears additional liberty. That's what they've done. You think that the real power of this state is to make the citizen fear the state? No. The real power in a state is to make the citizen fear liberty. What would happen if we let gay people get married? The world would end. Dogs and cats would live together. The houses would fall down. No, nothing would happen. I know that a lot of you are opposed to that, but you can be opposed to something without enforcing it with a law. Okay? What would happen if we got rid of most welfare and only took people who really couldn't work, who really had absolutely a physical impediment or a mental impediment to being able to do anything constructive, and everybody would starve? No, they would get off their ass and work. What if there wasn't a homeowners association to drive around with blue-haired old ladies telling people their grass is too long? The whole place would melt down, but yet there's neighborhoods without HOAs that don't look like, a trash hole. What if? What if this? What if that? What if there was no Social Security? Well, maybe people would save for their retirement. if there was no Social Security that just guaranteed you a retirement. Maybe the country wouldn't be broke. Maybe we wouldn't have $150 trillion of all. No, but that's not how the sheep will think. The sheep will think, what evil, horrible things would become of us without these things to protect us. You're more likely to be eaten by a shark if you swim in the ocean 10 times this year than to be blown up by a terrorist, but we'll give away our sovereignty to protect us from the terrorist. Do you understand what causes this to happen? It's not people that fear their government. It's people that fear the absence of their government that empower a tyrannical state. Has anybody ever explained it to you that way before? I bet there's a lot of people out there right now going, wow, I never really understood the power of tyranny and the source of tyranny's power. The source of tyranny's power is a fear of liberty. What liberty would mean? What if everybody just did what they wanted? Wouldn't that be terrible? That's actually the mentality that's been beaten into your skull since the time you were knee-high to a grasshopper and went to your first kindergarten class. Without rules, the world would be chaos. Sit in your chair. Stay there for 8 hours a day. And if you don't, we'll give you a little pill to help you be able to do it, Johnny. And what a terrible world we would live in if little Johnnies ran around and played in the dirt and didn't focus on learning how to read when they were 5 years old. Because, gee, you know what? They can start to learn about things that they're interested in at that point, and there's plenty of time left to learn how to read. But no, because the state says the time that you need to start formal education is 5 years old. Because the state says so. Think about that. The reason your child is put behind a desk for multiple hours a day, subjected to a very constrained system, and medicated if they don't conform is because the state said 5 years was the age that this needed to start. What if people had their kids start formal schooling at 7? No, the world would end, and it did. It wouldn't. Do you remember just 25-ish years ago when the speed limit in most of the country was 55? And they started talking about raising it to 65, 70, higher in some places. Everybody was going to die. Well, they did, and not everybody died. There's not really much more in the way of highway deaths today than there was at any time when you look at it per capita. It didn't do anything. The insurance company said, oh, this will just be horrible. The government said, oh, no. But states decided at certain points to do it on their own. And the federal government fought it the entire time. You know how they fought it? They told states, if you raise it past our federally mandated maximums, we will not give you your highway funds. And some states just did it anyway, eventually. And they got their highway funds because the state basically said, well, maybe we won't send you our tax dollars. See, the states have power. Because the people form the states, and the people have the power. This is what you've forgotten. And you don't have to have ever learned it to have forgotten it, because in your heart, in your soul, in your very humanity, these things are intrinsic to what you are. That liberty is a right by your existence, by your creation, that you are indoctrinated, empowered with liberty from the very moment that you existed. And there was a benevolent captivity necessary for you to be able to rise up and use that liberty. And what is that benevolent captivity? The captivity of your parents. You were born into captivity, but you were optimized and meant for liberty. Okay? And this is what I mean. Imagine a newborn baby. Go set it free in a field. What will happen to it? It'll die. We put it in a crib so that it doesn't roll over and fall and hurt itself. We childproof the home. We lock windows. We lock cabinets. We keep it from doing certain things that it's not supposed to do. We have to change its diaper, for God's sake, for a while. If we left it free, it would crap everywhere and create disease. So even before we had conventional diapers, we had ways to deal with that as a species. Eventually, that child begins to grow, and we begin to remove restrictions. And hopefully, by the time that child is old enough to be responsible for themselves, there are no more restrictions, and a parent is now a guide versus an overseer. Government has sold you on the need for benevolent captivity in a totally different way, with a belief that you never mature enough to get out of their benevolent captivity, that you must always remain in the benevolent captivity of your master. In fact, the very things they claim that are to make sure that you don't need help make you dependent. Because we go from being highly captive by the state in a school system as children to somewhat captive as a taxpayer, and eventually as a senior citizen to being captive to playing by their rules so that we'll get our Medicaid or our Medicare and our Social Security. And then we have to vote for the people that promise not to do anything to it, or we'll lose the only thing we have. The entire system is a trap. The entire system is a snare. And the harder you fight it and the harder you pull, the tighter it grips around you. So what you do is you stop fighting with a direct retreat. You stop fearing, what if? And you start asking yourself, what if? You start asking yourself, what if I just say no? What if I just say, I'm not doing this anymore? What if I just say, this is my new path and I'm going to walk it, and that come hell or high water, I'm responsible as a sovereign human being for myself and my family? What if I just say, you know what, maybe I won't always do business in cash and checks and credit cards anymore. Maybe sometimes I'll do business in barter, and they can very well try to track that if they really, really want to. What if I just say, no, I won't vote for the D or the R anymore, and maybe even the L? Maybe I just won't vote at all. Maybe I will use the weapon of apathy, in the words of Rob Gray. And then I'll turn my focus when I know I have the ability to do something. But I'm not going to go vote in an election where I don't want either candidate, and I already know one's going to win by 80% of the vote because the people are that brainwashed. I'm just not going to put my energy there. There's a referendum on the ballot that actually has a chance of winning, and I think it's good. Maybe I'll go vote for that. Or maybe I'll vote in every election. I'll do whatever I want, but I won't do it because I'm afraid. I'll do it because it's what I choose. Maybe I won't just turn the TV on and listen to whatever a group of suit and tie wearing Harvard graduate assholes decided would increase the ratings that night. Maybe I'll turn on a podcast and listen to a crazy redneck from Texas tell me there's a better way. Maybe I'll listen to other sources. Maybe I'll ask my own questions. Maybe I'll determine what I want to know, and I'll go gain that information versus being told what I'm supposed to know. Maybe I'll question everything. Maybe I won't conform to the state that says my child must become a student of the state at 5 years of age. Maybe I'll just say hell no. Maybe I'll take responsibility for their education myself. Or maybe I'll work with other parents to set that up. And we all revolt in different ways. The important thing is we all must revolt. Whether we do it with apathy or whether we attack. Whether we build our home with wanton disregard like the fire ant, or whether we go like the army ant and march. It doesn't matter as long as we revolt. And we don't revolt by asking for a new law with a new restriction. We revolt through the dismantling and in some cases the ignoring of their requirements for us. Or we revolt through the state houses. And we pass these state sovereignty laws and say, your shit doesn't apply here. And we wait. We wait for the first day that a sheriff has the guts to grab some federal thugs and throw them in the county jail and say, you don't get to do that here. And we see what happens. And we back that guy. You don't ask for permission to plant a garden. You plant a garden and defend your garden. You don't ask for permission to have a chicken. You get a chicken, you call it a pet, and you say, I dare you to take my chicken. And we won't win every fight like that. We won't. But damn it, we can fight. Do you hear me? Do you understand me? Does this resonate with you? Do you understand that being in the fight is the only way to be free at this point? I won't tell you where to fight, how to fight, what battles to pick. That's not my place. If I did, all you would have is a new person overseeing you. I'm telling you to pick what you want and believe what you want and gain the knowledge that you choose and take that and ram it up the ass of the state in any way you see fit at every single opportunity. And I'm telling you to do it legally and peacefully, but freaking repetitively, non-stop, till they feel like they're being stung by 10 million fire ants. Holy shit, these people don't want us anymore. Holy shit, these people are pissed. Holy shit, they know. Holy shit, they know there's more of us than there are of them. Holy shit, they know they created us. Holy shit, they know they fund us. Holy shit, if they really figure this out, if they're really sick of us, all they all have to do is just sit down and do nothing for a week, and we're done. We're sunk. We can't have our cush congressional retirement without their tax dollars, and they don't pay taxes unless they work. And if they don't work for a week, boy, that puts a big dimple in the damn U.S. economy, doesn't it? But what if it happened? Oh my God, it would be terrible. Not if you're prepared. And I'm not saying that's the way. It's a lot like a nuclear bomb. The nation with a nuclear arsenal doesn't have to launch a single missile. They just have to say, it's on the table. And maybe it's time for our government to know what's on the table from the American people. Maybe it's time for them to realize that people in Texas are tired of being told by people in Washington how to live. And people in Florida feel the same way. And even people in California feel that way. For all the liberty taking in California, there's been reclamation of other liberties. And maybe it's time for this republic to start acting like a republic instead of a giant superstate. And maybe that's the solution. And I don't know. But I do know the only way we start on the path toward a solution is to fight at every level, all the time, with wanton disregard for who it pisses off. In fact, in some instances, when somebody's pissed, you know you're doing the right thing. And if you can just get more people to be happy about what you're doing than pissed about what you're doing, we can call that progress. And with that, this has been Jack Spirko with another edition of the Survival Podcast, helping you figure out how to live that better life if times get tough, or even if they don't.